Senator, we're honored to have you here. Thank you for coming today.
Can you see my seat for 1 second?
Thank you, Councilor, for having us here today. Good afternoon, Pinellas Park. Good afternoon, Pinellas County. I don't know if you checked, but we've got a really, really big election coming up this fall, and it is my incredible honor to introduce to you the next governor of the state of Florida. And you know, it's easy for me to do the introduction. Byron and I served in the Florida House of Representatives for 2 years before he went and took the call to serve our great state, his great community in Congress. But I can tell you that those years in the Florida House and in the last 8 years for me in the legislature are a time when we going through COVID. Our current governor, Ron DeSantis, was making some very, very, very difficult decisions, but the right decisions, because our freedoms were on the line. If you remember back then, some areas of our country, the states and local communities, were requiring individuals to get a vaccine before they went to work. They were requiring individuals to wear masks, going to church, and really eroding the very freedoms that we hold dear. That is what is on the line in this election. And I can tell you, the 2 years that I served with Byron in the Florida House, you could tell at that point that he was a rock star. I think he was a chair of a subcommittee in education. He talked a lot about school choice. Talked a lot about education for our kids. Those are the things that we need to protect. I see some representatives here. We got Representative Kim Burfield, Representative Bernie Jacques. If there is anybody else here, I apologize. But that is what is on the line in this election. And I know my conversations one-on-one with Byron Donalds is that he is going to make sure that this state continues to be free. He's got a vision for this state when it comes to education, when it comes to our economy, when it comes to higher ed, when it comes to our economic freedom, when it comes to regulations. I've been a plow through the red tape, eliminate local governments and their ability to get in the way of businesses and their abilities to grow. I know that Byron Donalds is looking to have full-on residential and commercial permitting reform, for example. The good news here today is that Byron Donalds, he's a great candidate, but even more importantly, that he's going to take time to answer some of your questions. Not every candidate does that. So, and one last thing I want to remind everybody as we fast forward a little bit here to November. We've got a redcoat who's likely to be the Democratic nominee for the Democratic Party by the name of David Jolly. I don't know if you remember David Jolly, I sure do. He represented Pinellas County as a conservative. Myself, I was the vice chairman of the Republican Party at that time. We had not hundreds, thousands of volunteers that knocked on doors, that made phone calls, that worked in the stifling heat to get David Jolly elected to Congress, and he was nothing but a failure. He turned on us. He turned on our values. You can't trust anything he has to say, and in my opinion, he is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Do not be fooled by David Jolly. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to you my good friend, Congressman, and the next Governor of the free state of Florida, Byron Donalds. Come on up, sir.
Well, it's always great, Pastor. Thank you so much for opening up your home to us. Really appreciate it. First of all, when you're in the home of a pastor, you know that this is a sacred place for him, and I really do appreciate the time that you took to open up your congregation and open up your home to us. So I'm very, very grateful. So, and I want to thank everybody for taking the time to come. It's great to be back in Pinellas Park. We were here a couple of days ago knocking doors. It was a little bit hotter than it is today, but that's all right. But it's always good to be out there and see the people. Kim Burfield, it's good to see you. How are you? Doing well. Senator DeSigley, I remember when you were Representative DeSigley, you continue to do a great job for Pinellas County. Thank you for all your leadership. Looking through the room real quick. Was he able to make it? Oh, Bernie Jacques is here. Now I know we've hit the big time. Bernie's here. It's good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. Pastor, thank you. The Karen Gonzalez Pittman, she was able to make it. I'll see Karen, that's okay. Mayor Bradbury. Oh, Mayor, why did they let you stay in the back like that? It's all right, Mayor. Thank you so much for being able to make it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I don't want to do a long speech. This is really for you to ask whatever you want. We want to make sure that we open up the floor, ask whatever questions you think are important. We want to make sure that we do that. But I want to talk at first real quick about why. Not just why I'm running for governor, but why Florida is the best. I'm running because if you look at our state, our Governor DeSantis, has done a tremendous job leading Florida. Before him, Rick Scott did a tremendous job leading Florida. We have become the pinnacle of the other 49 states. We are the best state in America. People keep coming here. The next governor is going to have to balance not just the economic growth that's going to come, but the beauty that has made Florida what it is. And that balance is going to require diligence, real deep dives in economic policy, and understanding of what the issues are in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill, while also knowing the framework of Florida and how we get Tallahassee to be more efficient and responsive to the needs of our people. Past all of that, I spent 17 years in the financial industry. My career was in finance before politics. I'm the only person running for governor who's actually worked in the private sector, has a real financial and economic background. So when we're talking about all the issues facing the future of our state, everything from insurance and affordability to construction and growth management, I think it's important that the next governor have a strong economic background and a business background to guide the state into the future. So I'm really excited about where Florida is. Listen, I gotta tell you, this is a significantly better opportunity than if you were having to run New York. Yeah. By the laughter, I'm assuming everybody knows. And so we're the best state in America. The goal is to maintain ourselves and continue to be the best state in America. And on the video board, when we talk about defending the Florida dream, we mean it. Because that Florida dream is what so many of us have been able to build in our lives. I moved here to Florida 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I came to Florida to go to college. And when I came here, I didn't have much of anything. My wife and I started out at the bottom. We worked our way up through our careers. When we first got out of college, newly married, our oldest son was on the way. We were working 2 jobs to make ends meet. When we have built the Florida dream in our lives, I want to make sure that ability to continue that is alive for every generation of Floridians to come, including that young girl that's right over there sitting in the front row. We want to make sure that the Florida dream is alive and well for her. Adam Ross, good to see you, my friend. I saw you in the back. So we will start here. I will open up the floor. Please, whatever questions you have, please ask them. It'll be my pleasure to answer, and thank you all for being here. So we have mics coming around, so don't be shy. Here we go. We got one all the way in the back. Oh, yes, sir.
Hello. I've got a question about data centers, AI data centers. I recently retired from the IT consulting business, and I've been doing quite a bit of work with AI for at least the last 5 years. I believe, as does President Trump, and I know you used to. I'm not quite sure I'm clear on where you stand today, but I know that there's a lot of fear out there about the rising costs of power, electricity and water, predominantly. I think a lot of that will get offset by some people that will be employed by building these centers. It doesn't take a lot of people to run a data center, but it feels to me like when I hear your ads on TV, like you've kind of shifted to maybe data centers if we can do it without any raise in the cost of power or water, but if not, no data centers. That scares the heck out of me, because knowing how important AI is going to be and the race to AI to beat China, etc., I don't think we have a choice. And the states that build data centers, and I get nobody wants one next door to your home, we got a lot of vacant land here in Florida. We need data centers. So what are your thoughts, and where do you really stand on that? Because it seems like you've kind of backed away a bit.
This is a great question. I'm glad you asked, because this is one of the major kind of flashpoint conversations happening in the state, and quite frankly all over the country. It's not just here in Florida. Number one, I do not want people's utility bills going up for a hyperscale data center. I don't want to see that. I think two things have occurred already in Florida, and let's get into some detail. Your utility rates are not going to go up because Governor DeSantis signed into law Senate Bill 484 that prevents your utility bills from going up because of a hyperscale data center. We are going to keep that in place in law in Florida. I will also add that we are a regulated utility state. So the only way your electric bills can go up is if the Public Service Commission approves a rate increase. When it comes to hyperscale data centers, we are going to make sure that we protect your utility bills. Number two, water consumption. The law, it's not even a bill anymore. The law also calls for these hyperscale data centers have to get a consumptive use permit from the Water Management District. The Water Management Districts protect Florida's aquifer. They also deal with all water runoff into basins and aquifer recharge. So when they have to get a consumptive use permit from water management, all that does is protect the water resources for the people of Florida. We are going to continue to keep that law on the books. We are going to follow that law. The next things I want to say about them is proximity is something that we still have to deal with as a state. Look, I agree. I don't want them next to my house just like nobody wants them next to their house. So as long as they are set away from residential neighborhoods, that is something that we mitigate and manage, so that way communities are not being directly impacted by a hyperscale data center. The fourth one is a closed loop system, filtration. The technology in the new building designs call for a closed loop system. Think like a water treatment plant on site, where once the water comes out of the aquifer, then that water is recycled, and they're not pulling water every single day out of the aquifer. What people have seen on social media and on YouTube are the old data center designs, which are basically consuming new water resources every single day. The new designs do not do that. They actually recycle the water. Think about your swimming pool. So everybody, if you have a swimming pool, how it works is you pull the water up once, you have your pump system that basically recycles the water and cleans the water. You might add a little bit of water because of evaporation, but you almost have a self-contained unit, and you'll notice that when you fill your pool that first month, your water bill is through the roof, but then every subsequent month, because the water usage is significantly lower, the bills are kind of low. They can do the same thing with the new designs today. Not even can, they are doing the new things today. Let's talk about the flip side of AI. There's a couple people who have their phones out, and that's good. Record, post, I totally support all of that. But when you record and when you post to social media, it's not going in the cloud. There's never been a cloud. It's always been a data center. Florida already has more than 100 traditional data centers. So every time you store a picture, every time you send an email, it's not stored on your phone. It's been stored in a data center. With hyperscalers, the reason why they're much larger is because of AI use. AI is in every phone that you're using today. It's in every company that is operating today. They're all using AI. I'll give you a quick story. Over the weekend, if you notice, I believe in making sure my beard is trimmed. I believe in that. I think it's important. So my clippers went out. So I had to order a new one, and I knew I was getting on the road at 6 a.m. Monday morning. So I'm in the Amazon Marketplace at 1:30 in the morning, Sunday, 1:30 a.m. Saturday night, Sunday morning. And I'm in the Amazon Marketplace, and I'm looking to see if I can get something delivered to my house before I get on the road, right? I was able to find a clipper set that was prepared to be delivered to my house between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. Sunday morning. So I said, ooh, cool, ordered it, bing. It showed up at my house in that time window. I opened up the package, and I realized that the charging port wasn't what I wanted. So I went back into the Amazon Marketplace around 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon, found another one that actually had the charging port I wanted. They could deliver it to my house between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. So I said, let me just order it before I forget. I did. Bing, it was at my house in the time they said. everybody typically likes that. The way Amazon is able to deliver that product is because they're using AI to manage the inventory systems. So in our society, where we have now grown accustomed to be able to search any topic we want to, and by the way, if you use Google search engine now, it's being run by Google Gemini. It's not the old search engine anymore. They've turned it over to AI. If you're using Amazon, if you're watching shows on Netflix, if you're watching shows on Paramount Plus, you're using AI. But the amount of AI usage that is happening is why you're seeing this push around the country for centers. Because the AI data center is essentially the infrastructure that allows for AI compute power to continue. I know this is way deeper than most people ever get into this topic, but this is where the next governor has to be detailed in thinking and not just shooting from the hip, throwing out talking points. Because talking points don't solve these issues going forward. If Florida's economy is set to expand in many ways, anybody who's been to Kennedy Space Center recently, we did 165 rocket launches last year. 5 years ago, Kennedy Space Center was basically a museum. Now it's an active spaceport. In a couple of years, we're going to be doing 1,000 launches a year out of KSC. What's going to come with that is manufacturing plants to build these rocket systems. This is not an old assembly line manufacturing plant. These are advanced manufacturing plants where in part they're using AI to help them build the rocket systems that they're launching out of Florida. Those rocket systems comes with high-paying jobs throughout that coast of Florida, and quite frankly, in parts of North Florida where this manufacturing is going to take place. In order to do that, you have to have computing power. In order to have computing power, you have to have the centers that can compute this information. So this is a very detailed topic. So when I talk about AI data centers, it's not being pro-data center or anti-data center. It's can Florida provide, number one, the necessary power so your utility bills go up. Number two, can we protect water resources where you can balance industry with the need of people in our state, not just today, but into the future of Florida? Can you keep it away from people's homes? We can definitely do that. And then number four, how does it continue to advance not just Florida's economy for high-paying jobs so young people can get into employment, have the money they need to then go off and build a home and build the Florida dream for themselves? And how do you still grow our economy while protecting our resources? That's really what this whole issue around data centers are. And so to be clear to the gentleman's question, what I want to see is that we mitigate the weaknesses. And Governor DeSantis already signed into law 2 of the key measures that will mitigate the weaknesses and protect Floridians. We are going to keep that in place. So as long as you're protecting Floridians, you protect our environment, then there's a way where you can actually have those systems in place so that we can use the computing power to continue to grow Florida's economy into the future. I know that's long, but that is my position.
Could everybody do me a favor right now and turn your cell phones off so that we can hear the congressman without the interruptions? Thank you.
I just put them on mute, so it's all good. Yes, ma'am. Hi.
Hi. I am a single mother with 2 kids, and thank goodness I have a good job. But one of the biggest problems I have in Florida, and I love Florida, I never intend to leave, is Florida childcare is very, very expensive. And it's essentially rent for a month of childcare for one child, and I have 2. And I make good money, so I don't qualify for assistance. It's just me by myself. I guess my biggest concern is what your thoughts are on how to help with how expensive Florida childcare really is, because it's very high.
First of all, yes, you are correct, it's very high. My kids are now 22, 15, and 18. It was high when they were in childcare. And I could imagine what it is today. What we can do from the state, a couple of things. First, insurance. And I know you're like, but I asked about childcare. Why are you getting into insurance? Because insurance is a core cost of any business, including daycare providers, childcare providers. If we have the necessary regulatory reforms and insurance that can push down those costs even more, it makes it easier for the providers to provide their services And then childcare is a competition because every daycare is full, quite frankly, regardless of the price. And so in that way, it makes it a more competitive environment for people who are seeking it because you were able to push down some of the hard costs that every business, including the childcare center, has to pay. The second piece is where it gets really dicey. A couple of years ago, there was an amendment in Florida's constitution around the minimum wage. The minimum wage in Florida now is $14. In about a month, it's going to go to $15. And then after that, it adjusts every single year for inflation. So there are costs that even the state can't control because that's what the minimum wage laws in Florida are today. So this is a very difficult one. To be blunt with you, I don't have an answer on childcare. I really don't. Because if the government now gets into the process of trying to find ways to provide other supplemental funding, the question is then what are the limits? First, what are the limits? Second, how do we even finance that? And I don't want to stand up here and be glib with you and say, oh, I have this great plan. There's a lot of study that needs to go into this. I know several times people have tried to come up with a strategy, and typically the strategy is government providing subsidies into the space, but that typically doesn't pan out because then you have to take into account the amount of kids below the age of 5 that are currently in the state of Florida whose parents will qualify for that, and can the state maintain paying for that every single year? So let me just go back and look at it. Man, we will get your number. And then we will sit down and talk about this in more detail. This is one of those issues, just being very direct, we haven't studied as much, and I want to look at it more. But I think if we can contain some of the insurance costs that a lot of these providers are having to pay, that will help to lower the costs across the board because their overhead is lower. That's right. Who's next? Where are we at?
I have a question about our growth here in Florida as a resident of.
Sir, I would say speak into the mic so everybody can hear the question.
As a lifelong resident of Pinellas County, what I'm seeing is totally uncontrolled growth, and we can't keep up with the number of people as our roads are crumbling. We're asked to conserve water. Is there any solutions to total uncontrolled growth? I know, and I've been working since '71, and I think in '72 we had a 1-year building moratorium to try to catch up with the infrastructure. But I don't see that happening right now.
Well, it's a great question. One of the things that happened post-COVID, and there's really nobody to blame per se. So many people moved here so fast, the infrastructure projects, it just wasn't possible to keep up with them. What the governor has done in response is in part his Moving Florida Forward plan, which actually provided more resources to some of these infrastructure projects. Because every time I travel and say, well, people are talking about growth, yes, it's about new homes on every other corner, but it's also about the amount of traffic and how hard it is getting from point A to point B to point C. My strategy for how we manage the future of Florida's growth is setting up regional growth management plans. And this is actually working with each county government to make sure that we have a concrete plan of what the next 5, 10, 20, and 30 years look like, and making sure that we're investing in the right infrastructure improvements so that we can scale the infrastructure along with Florida's population. So that way you can actually fix a lot of the transportation and growth issues that we're having. If we don't go to regional planning, I just want to be very clear with you. If we don't have a regional plan of how the Tampa Bay region is going to grow, then what's going to happen is we're going to choke on our growth. And once that starts happening, then you create other issues around economic stability, prices, etc. Not to mention, you're going to see more people leave. And once people start leaving an area, there is a downstream economic effect that does happen to that community. So the answer is managing this growth, making sure we build the road systems that we need efficiently. And it's not just road systems, it's wastewater treatment facilities, how we're going to deliver power, do we have enough sheriffs who are on the beat, what are we going to do about firefighter stations, and we have to have a concrete strategy. Down in Southwest Florida where I live, I don't want to speak for the Tampa Bay area, the commissioners don't really talk much. So they're just worried about, for Tampa Bay, Pinellas County, or they're just worried about Hillsborough County. But they're not looking at the region and saying, what are the systems we need in place so that the people who moved to our state 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or have lived in our state their entire lives can still navigate the state while new people are coming in. Here's the truth. People are choosing Florida because we're a well-run state, we're a common sense state, and we're a conservative state. That's why they come. The question is, do we have the strategies to maintain the Florida quality of life, to defend the Florida dream that we all love? And the only way we are going to get there is having concrete strategies for how each region manages their growth into the future. I don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach. I never have, which is why what I've talked about are regional plans. There are about 7 different regions of Florida. They're all very different. They have different needs. So you have to have a strategy about how we're going to make sure we manage that growth to address the very concern that you're talking about.
And for the record, Pinellas County has about 300,000 more people than all of Alaska.
Oh, wow.
I mean, most of Florida's got more people than all of Alaska.
It's a
And you know what? I don't really want. It's cold up there.
Yeah, I'm
Nobody
not
wants to
going to
know
that.
it.
No, I'm not.
I got a couple friends up there, but it's still cold. But thank you for your question.
Hey there. So I was a health and medical freedom activist during COVID, and Governor DeSantis signed what he called the strongest medical freedom law, I would say in addition to Idaho, with permanent bans on vaccine mandate requirements, discrimination protections based on vaccination or immunity status, physician speech protections, and a ban on gain-of-function research. So, as governor, will you commit to continuing and expanding DeSantis' framework in Florida? If not, where do you differ from DeSantis' medical freedom agenda, and what would your approach look like?
So the bill in question, the law in question, we are keeping that in place. But let me take, we are keeping that in place. The answer is yes. I want to be very clear with everybody. My job is to build on the success of Governor DeSantis. It's not to go back and be like, well, I don't like this, and I don't like that, and I don't like that. We're going to build on that success. This is one of the things that I truly do believe in. We're going to build on that. The areas when it comes to vaccines where I want to do more research are in the statutory vaccines that are already in Florida law. I'm talking about polio, MMR, I think smallpox is in Florida law. And so all I'm saying is that I want to make sure that we study that before we start making any adjustments on that portion of the mandate. What the governor and the Surgeon General have already talked about the rulemaking vaccines. This is where the Department of Health has already put these on the vaccination schedule, that they want that to go to informed consent. I agree with that. Because the legislature never passed it, a governor never signed it, so that should all be informed consent. The other thing I think we should do is we should spread out the vaccination schedule. I have 3 sons. I will tell you the vaccination schedule between my 22-year-old and my 15-year-old was different. I can imagine what it is for infants today, where they're packing in these vaccines before the human body that just came out of the womb has an opportunity to even adjust. So I think we need to look at spreading that out the schedule. The other day we made an announcement about our initiative is to look into school cafeterias, get artificial dyes and other things that get those out of the lunchroom, get them out of the lunchroom, expand the farm to the school lunch table program, which already exists in Florida. So we actually have more vegetables, more leafy greens that are being served to our children. And then also we want to make sure that we're doing the water testing in our schools, and then we want to commit the resources to fix it to make sure that we're not having PFAS and some of these forever chemicals in the water systems for our kids. So that's where we want to take what the governor has done and expand on that.
That's great. So I can connect you with some people that you might want to need to talk to if you want to do that research, because Aaron Siri, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's done all the research with Del Bigtree and Bobby Kennedy. So that would be great to set up a committee to look more into that, because when a baby turns 2 years old right now, there's 26 vaccines on that schedule. So by the time they turn 2. And a lot of these, regarding polio, there's a lot of disinformation out there, so it would be good to get in with them.
2 quick things. The Secretary Kennedy and I exchanged a couple messages this morning. He was actually very happy to hear about the school lunch initiatives that we're moving forward. To the additional research, and this is where I don't know, is it Mr. Siri, Miss Siri? Aaron, E-R-I-N? Oh, Mr. Siri, okay. I don't know him. So the way I work is, I want to sit down and look at the research too. And that's not to exclude or ignore him, but to be blunt, as governor, my responsibility will be to look at all the information and make the appropriate decision, not just on behalf of Floridians today, but Floridians into the future. But what you just said about the vaccine schedule for your 2-year-old, oh my gosh. This is where some of this stuff is just pure common sense. And I think this is where the public health establishment just got caught up in their own peer research, where we are now realizing that some of that peer research is flawed because they just wanted to pat each other on the back regardless of what the implications were on people.
Has been working on property tax, and I wanted to address how you feel about that, the homestead relief bill that's coming up.
I support the amendment because people aren't piggy banks for government. Look, here's the problem. Here's what local governments have not done. When property values were increasing rapidly because we were a safe haven, quite frankly, for people all over the country, and they were buying homes sight unseen and property values were going up, what local officials did not do is roll back their millage rates. They let the property values go up and they told you, oh no, we didn't increase taxes. No, they didn't increase the millage. Their tax collections continue to go. And now they're upset because there's an amendment on the ballot brought to us by our friends in the legislature and Governor DeSantis that would say, you know what, we're gonna let Floridians keep more money in their pocket. So local governments, I know they're upset, but they in part brought us here because what they should have done was been mindful of the taxpayer and actually trimming their budgets and stabilizing their revenue collection so that people weren't opening up their trim notices and being like, oh my gosh, what just happened? So I support the amendment. If the amendment does not pass, well, quite frankly, whether the amendment passes or not, next year in Florida's Constitution, it happens every 20 years, is the Taxation and Budget Reform Commission. We are going to use the Taxation and Budget Reform Commission to study all taxes and fees in the state of Florida, including the property tax system. We're going to have a goal for fully eliminating homestead property taxes in the state of Florida. And if we can't get there, how do we actually get seniors on fixed income and working families off the rolls? That's going to be the path that we're going to chart with the Tax and Budget Reform Commission. This was put into the state's constitution after it was rewritten in 1968. And so the gentlemen and ladies who wrote the 68 Constitution, they were actually prescient in this. Florida at that time was mostly an agriculture state with some retirements that were beginning to occur in Florida. We're now an everything state. Everybody's coming here for a reason. So it is time for us to relook at the entire system top to bottom. There are pieces of the tax system that are really outdated and do not fit the functions in Florida today. I'll give you an example. This is on the commercial side. On the commercial side, the personal property tax, the way it's complied with small business is different for every county in the state. Part of it is a depreciation schedule where some counties set up their own schedule, which is different from the federal depreciation schedule. So you're a small business owner, you have your federal depreciation, and the Pinellas County depreciation. If you have a location in Pinellas and Hillsborough, you have the federal Pinellas and Hillsborough definition on depreciation that you have to comply with. That doesn't make any sense. And you're making it harder on small businesses to operate in our state, which quite frankly are the lifeblood of our economy. So there's a lot of reforms that need to happen in the overall taxing system. The last piece of that, we have 140 million tourists that choose Florida every single year. And after this last World Cup, I think that number's going up. Because a lot of them want to go to Buc-ee's. They love Buc-ee's. And they want to be able to go to the Gulf of America. Isn't it great to be in the Gulf of America? I think it's awesome. We're going to have tourists come. How do we capture that revenue to defray the costs of law enforcement, police, fire, and road maintenance? These are the things that we need to be thinking about constructively as the state moves forward. I've been talking to sheriffs and police chiefs, and I tell them the same thing. If there's a tourist, all right, here in Pinellas Park, anybody got a cool local bar you like? Anybody? Oh, not all at once, okay. So there's a local bar you like. Well, if you have a tourist in the bar and something goes wrong and the police get called, who pays for that? You do. Not the tourists. You pay for that. So this is the way we have to be thinking about our state going into the future, and we're going to use the Tax and Budget Reform Commission to do that.
Hey Byron, as a lifelong Floridian, I have a concern with overdevelopment. It seems that, you are the front runner for the Republican Party. I am expecting you to, win the nomination. And with that being said, it does seem that the data centers are inevitable. You said you don't want them in our neighborhoods. I agree, but I also don't want to see them, pave down orange groves and especially the Everglades. And just, I don't want to disrupt the natural ecosystem. I've already seen, so many apartment complexes, condos, all kinds of things just constantly going up. And, the state has changed so dramatically, within the last 30 years. Like, as long as you've lived here, I know it's changed in Naples as well. And that's just one of my main concerns is, where exactly do you have plans to build these data centers? It would be, really sad to see more beautiful, untouched land just get paved away to build these data centers.
This is a great question, and I thank you for the question. Let's start with the Everglades. We are not building in the Everglades. The only thing we're going to be building in the Everglades are the necessary infrastructure to finish Central Everglades restoration once and for all. And in my time as governor, we are going to finish Central Everglades restoration. And most people will say, well, the Everglades is over there. As somebody who represented Hendry County, Florida, and Collier County, Florida, Hendry County is LaBelle and Clewiston and all the farming that goes on south of Lake Okeechobee. I have been on airboats in Lake Okeechobee. I've toured most of these places. We are not building anything in the Everglades. We are going to protect the Everglades because that natural sheet flow of water that moves through the Everglades system into Florida Bay, that is the source of aquifer recharge for Miami-Dade County, Broward County, and Palm Beach County. So I want to be very clear. We are not building any Everglades. I know there are cute videos who, quite frankly, they're using AI to make them on social media. Side note, a lot of people who are anti-AI are using AI. It's a weird phenomenon. But anyway, it's true. It's a weird phenomenon, but it's true. We're not doing that. Number two, I believe in property rights. It is not the governor's job to dictate what gets built where. It's not the job of the governor. The job of the governor primarily is to uphold Florida's Constitution and protect the rights of the people of Florida. We are going to do that job. If there is a landowner who decides they want to develop their land into a data center, I also will tell you it's not the governor's job to tell a landowner what they can or cannot do with their land. Because at that point, you don't have a governor, you have a king. I'm not signing up for that job. My job is to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the state of Florida. Property rights are essential to Florida's fabric, essential in our Constitution. So I hear the talk of people say, I'm gonna ban this, I'm gonna ban that. I mean, that's all cute. Sounds good on social media, but it's not reality. A governor doesn't have the ability to just start banning stuff. You have to uphold the law. So if somebody who has land decides they want to develop it, there are property rights in our state. It is their property. If they choose to develop it, that's fine. What we're saying from a data center perspective is you cannot allow utility rates, you have to protect water, and we're going to protect proximity. And that is, in my view, state purview in order to protect all the people of Florida while we have to balance and manage development. Specific to orange groves, because you brought it up, when I was in the legislature, I actually funded a lot of the research in IFAS to help restore the citrus industry from canker and citrus greening. There's a new rootstock that we've developed through that research, which has been funded by the legislature for 15 years now. We've been funding this research. I know most people don't talk about it, but ask Nick, he'll tell you. The new rootstock for orange, for citrus growth, is actually working. It's starting to defeat canker and citrus green, and that's a good thing. We want to see citrus development. We have over 300 specialty crops in the state of Florida, and we need to continue to grow on those lands because we feed half the eastern seaboard here in the great state of Florida. Because when it's freezing up north, it's our crops that feed half of the United States of America. So agriculture is going to continue to be a part of Florida. If there's a landowner who chooses to develop their land, it's not the purview of a governor to tell them yes or no. Because like I said before, at that point, you don't have a governor, you have a king. And to be honest, I don't trust anybody to do that. Hey, yes, sir.
As a homeowner's insurance, they're citizens for the state. A lot of these vendors are leaving the area because of the hurricanes. What can we do, number one, to get vendors back, but to give the homeowners more of an option? I'm a civil engineer, I own a land surveying company. After the hurricanes, going out and doing flood certificates for these homeowners, trying to recoup their losses. I've heard nothing but horror stories. People trying to deal with the insurance companies and getting what they felt they earned and are owed. It's bad. There's not many options for us. What can be done to bring other vendors in to give us more of a choice? And aside from citizens, is there any intent on possibly another state-run insurance for us?
So this is a great question, dealing all with insurance. I'm glad you asked it. A couple things. Since the governor and the legislature did tort reform back in 2023, we've actually seen, I believe it's 20 new insurance companies that have come into the state of Florida. So we're actually seeing more companies come in. Another thing that's occurred, the Office of Insurance Regulation stated last year that for the first time in more than a decade, not one insurance company requested a rate increase, directly tied to the reforms of the governor and the legislature from a couple of years ago. We still need 2 more years to fully flesh out those reforms. I attempted to study for the actuarial exams when I was in insurance. I realized that I was not. Yeah, I'm good, but that's a whole nother level. What we know is that it takes the actuaries about 5 years to look back over reforms to figure out how to truly rate risk in Florida. So we're keeping the governor's tort reforms in place. We want to get through those 5 years and see what the true new risk of Florida is. We are adding new carriers. There's something else we have to do though. We need new regulatory reforms on the structure, on Florida's structure overall. Florida's insurance regulatory framework is largely unchanged since Hurricane Andrew back in 1992. And to be clear, for good reason. Insurance in Florida was relatively cheap until the last 5 or 6 years. And now we're seeing the price spikes, and that's a problem. So we have to address it. So we're going to be proposing several reforms to the Florida Catastrophe Fund and other parts of Florida insurance with a goal of pushing down premium rates 20% in the state of Florida, directly impacting the people of Florida. The other thing we want to do when it comes to insurance is we have to reform permitting and planning in the state of Florida. I just left a business owner. It took them 3.5 years to put a shovel in the ground. Well, that 3.5 years is not free. If a developer or a contractor has to wait on local government to deliver permits, the cost of the project has now gone up. And who pays the cost? All of you. It's the police officers in the room. It's the working families who are trying to afford Florida. So we have to be efficient with the government side of things. Post-storm, I know everybody here went through Helene and Milton. Post-storm, if you're trying to rebuild your property and you don't have to raise the code because you went over FEMA's 50% rule, I propose automatic permits. As long as you're rebuilding your house back to what it was, why are you waiting on the government for permits? Why? Makes no sense. And what that also does, it increases the cost of construction. You increase the cost of construction, it increases your insurance premiums because there's 2 sides of the coin. There's the premium rate that the carriers charge and the replacement cost of the property. When you're paying your insurance premiums, you're not paying what it costs you to buy the property. You're paying what it costs to replace the property. And so we have to use every tool in our arsenal to push down the replacement costs. So part of that is permitting, the other part is the regulatory side that we have to make in Florida's insurance framework. Now here's where the good news is. Everybody ready for this one? The reason why I know so much about this, I spent 17 years in the financial industry, we talked about that earlier. I chaired the insurance and banking subcommittee when I was in the Florida House. So these aren't talking points. I know the subject matter. These are things we can deliver on in year one as Florida's next governor. So that's how you expand the marketplace, you bring new carriers in, we make internal changes that Florida has been needing to make for a long time. I wanted to make them when I was chair. I was overruled. That's the way it is. We're going to push those costs down, and then we're going to have more carriers come in. To Citizens. Citizens is now around 220,000 policies. It used to be 1.3 million policies were in Citizens. It needs to stay at that level. We do not need another state-run insurance company. Anybody here have flood insurance? NFIP? Figured. Good morning, Pinellas Park. That's a government-run health insurance policy. Well, we do have government-run health insurance policies. That's a government-run property insurance policy, and the National Flood Insurance Program. What have we seen? Because I've seen it in my neighborhood. I have flood insurance too. Premiums are high, the coverage sucks. Do we want to replace that system? I don't think so. So actually I have legislation I'm working on in Washington right now to open up private flood insurance once again in the United States. Because to your point, the people of Florida need options. And so those are the things that we're gonna do. Real quick before you go to the next one, because the team is running around, which means I get to make decisions. So it's 5:23. I'm gonna ask you guys, we can either continue with questions or we can stop and I can shake hands. I would prefer to continue with questions because looking around this room, people have questions and they want answers to them. Is that fair? All right, let's do it. We're gonna continue. Who's next?
Since I grew up during the Cuban Missile Crisis, how do we prevent that from happening again?
Number one, let's talk to Cuba first. Number one, they're flat on their back. It's time for the Castro regime to fall. I fully support that. I know so does President Trump and Secretary Rubio support that. And a free Cuba is going to have a friend in Florida. So that takes care of that. Number two, and this is more important, I think we're having this conversation as Republicans and conservatives. We have a lot of younger people who are in our movement who do believe that we should be totally focused on America. For a myriad of reasons, and I'm not saying they're wrong in their beliefs. The only thing I ask them to do is look at world history. Look at the last 150 years of world history. Every time America looked inward and ignored the world, we had war come to our doorstep. Every single time. And what happens is that then you have to spill American blood. And I don't want to do that either. So there is responsibilities when it comes to global affairs. We're the world's economic and military superpower. I don't want to police the world, but there are responsibilities that America has on the world stage. Because the country that would love for America to be isolationist is China. China would love nothing more than to dominate global affairs. And if you look at what their Belt and Road Initiative has done already in our hemisphere, we were too busy in the Middle East not paying attention to the Chinese through their Belt and Road Initiative, building infrastructure in poor countries in Central and South America, and in having the economic whip over the heads of these countries. We have to reassert the Monroe Doctrine. America has a responsibility to make sure that we are the dominant player in our hemisphere. And the last thing on this goes back, especially for the young kids in the back, this goes back to the lunchroom, cafeteria politics. If there's a bully moving through the crowd and nobody stands up to him, what happens? Come on, man, this is common sense. We all know what happens. America is the greatest force for good on the face of the earth. There is no doubt. There has been more prosperity and more peace on this planet when America became the dominant economic and military superpower. So I don't want to be policing every country. I don't want to be in that business. But we do have a responsibility to pay attention to foreign policy and make sure we support our allies so that there is stability and peace around the world. And that is one of the reasons why the Cuban Missile Crisis came to be, because America was not focused, and we had the Russian military dropping ICBMs on Cuba 90 miles off our shore.
Yes, I just wanted to this is me.
Oh, how you doing, sir?
How you doing? I'm originally from Pinellas County, and you know, when COVID happened, a lot of stuff with like recreation and this community outreach for the youth, it kind of stopped. And you know, it's a lot of back and forth where finances go as far as elders and veterans as well as the youth. I just want to know what is your plan for the youth, and also like, will we be able to get to talk to you and reach out to you if you win this position for as being governor? Because I don't want it spells where our governor now does not be seen, heard from, and everybody has a lot of questions. So those are just kind of, hopefully you answer the first one because that's more important to me. But overall, as an adult, I want to know, will you be available? That's pretty much it.
This is a great question. I think I did a fireside chat about 2 months ago, and the moderator asked, how do you deal with like issues on social media where a narrative gets out, but people don't know what's real and what's not, and narratives can tend to move pretty quickly. Right. And I said, listen, I think elected officials have a responsibility to be present. You have to be out there and engage communities. And up until this gubernatorial election, I did a bunch of town halls in my district. I actually pushed on my team, got to do another town hall. So we try to do 3 to 4 every term. As governor, I think this back and forth, we got to continue this. It's not just about sitting in the governor's mansion in Tallahassee, it's being here in Pinellas Park to talk about what you want to talk about. That helps me do my job. Second thing I need, candor. Let me tell you how this works from an elected official side. I see former Senator Brandis is over there. How you doing, Jeff? When you're an elected official, especially when you're dealing with, other members, lobby corps, and all that other stuff, I'm 6'2", 285 now. I'm getting older, right? Well, here's the deal. To some of these people, I'm 6'6", 200 pounds, and I'm funny, and my hair is always cut right. I'm the smartest person in the room. And I always tell these groups and all these people, I don't need your adulation. I need your candor. If it's a good idea, tell me. If it's a bad idea, tell me. If something's not working out, tell me. Because that's the way I'm going to be able to do my job effectively. So that's to your question. Well, am I going to be around? Am I going to be present? Yes. Because I think it's the responsibility, especially in this climate of politics, you have to over-communicate with the people that you serve. And somebody has to be able to set very clear, here's what's happening, here's what's not happening, here are the details, so you can make decisions accordingly. To the youth, there are a couple things we want to do. In K-12 education, I want to see mastery in math, reading, and writing. Not grade level, mastery. Young people have to master these concepts by the time they graduate high school. Second thing I want to see, we have to have internships and apprenticeships for our kids who are not going to college and university. These little kids, they're very intelligent, very bright. God has gifted them with some semblance of talent. But if they don't have an opportunity to get some credentialing or on-the-job training, they just graduate from high school. We've all seen these ceremonies. We've all been a part of them. You get your diploma, or the tube, I guess. They give you the tube now. You get the tube, your family applauds. You walk off stage, mom is proud. Okay, now what are we going to do? So what I want to see, we have a Launchpad initiative. We want to see the kids who are not going into college and university, give that kid an opportunity to learn a trade before they graduate high school. Team them up with a local company. And by the way, all these local companies are looking for young people to train, to help them get a career, build a life for themselves, put food on the table. And for men, find a young girl that likes them, get married, have kids, and continue this thing that is the Florida dream. That's what I want to see for our young people.
Thank you Governor, will you be able to prevent foreign countries from buying large tracts of land in our state?
Yes, and to Governor DeSantis' credit, yes. To Governor DeSantis' credit, this is something that's already started. They started with farmland. We want to make sure we expand it in anywhere that they weren't able to touch. We cannot have foreign countries buying large tracts of land in our state. Oh, wait.
One last question.
We're having to bring the mics back. See, you know what the cool thing is when you're the boss? I can do that. Bring the mics back. But Pastor, I do want to be respectful of your children.